How are ya? How you guys doing? Been a while, a few days. We have had some brutal cold weather. Some snow, this, that, and the other thing. But I am with you today. 39 degrees. Does not feel like 39, it's windy. I put wind cancellation on the camera, so if I sound like a robot when I'm talking, that's what's causing that when the wind's blowing. So hopefully it silences the wind pretty well. As you can see, we have a beautiful day today. Kind of the calm before the Arctic blast. We are going to have some very nasty cold weather tomorrow into the weekend. Nasty business. So I'm going to do 6 miles today for my MAHA walk, which stands for Make America Healthy Again. I don't like doing the treadmill thing, so I just don't walk when it's cold. Otherwise, the rest of the year, I walk every day. Because in the summertime, when it's 95 degrees, hot, humid, sweltering, I don't walk. I walk at night, so, which is nice, you know, shorts and a shirt. So anyway, I walk when I get a chance to, and you just don't get the same experience from treadmill, physically or mentally. So I like to get the fresh air, the sunshine, almost getting run over. I'm gonna turn the camera around so I can watch the traffic right across. I just wanted to say hi to you. around the corner here and get my blood pumping. I'll turn the camera around again. And we got a lot of things to discuss today. Everything from Jack Smith to Maine's Shenna Bellows here, Secretary of State. She's the one that sued to have RFK Jr. removed off the presidential ballot to help Joe Biden. She also removed Donald Trump from the primary ballot temporarily until a court told her she couldn't do that. Now she's running for governor. She is running for governor with other people. She hasn't been chosen yet in the primary, but I suspect she'll be the one people choose because she fought Donald Trump. Which is why she did that with the ballot. I did my part to save democracy. It just didn't work out. And she knew she couldn't kick him off. She did it anyway. It was politics. She had to make her bones. And she's a plant. She ain't even from around here. You know what I'm saying? She's here from Massachusetts. She moved here. She's a plant. She's an activist. What I mean by a plant is she's connected. She was an activist. So the Democrats in Maine brought her here to do what she's doing now. Systemically trying to change the state. And good news is they're failing to do that, which is nice. But man, I gotta tell you, they are trying so hard, the Democrats, and they're failing here in Maine. And I know when you listen to the national news, you might have a different vibe on that, but it's the national news. I'm telling you locally from being here that people that live here know that the media is crooked. They know the Democrats are crooked. And Janet Mills is on the hot seat, who's running against Susan Collins. Which, by the way, she's not the chosen candidate yet either. Meaning Janet Mills. They're going to have a primary. She may get unseated by Graham Plattner. A couple, 3 months ago, I told you, I swear to God, guys, Graham Plattner is going to beat Janet Mills easily. Well, that was 3 months ago. That was before the Nazi tattoo and other information that's come out about him. So, I think that'll be tighter. He still has a shot, though. Young people in Maine, you know, they want somebody young, and Janet Mills is not that. But more importantly, Janet Mills vetoed a few bills that young communists wanted passed. The legislature here passed them. She vetoed them. She's vetoed, geez, 30 plus. So I can't even begin to name you all of the stuff that she's vetoed, but all of the crazy left lunatic stuff Janet Mills has vetoed. So that's good. She could have signed all of those into law and really screwed up this state. But she understands the internals of the Democratic Party, and that the Democratic Party right now is not doing well. She understands that. That's what you get with age and wisdom. Plus, Janet Mills used to be the Attorney General in Lewiston, Maine here. And Janet Mills has been in Maine her whole life. Well, most of it. That counts for politics. Unlike Shenna Bellows. So, anyway, I'm going to take this moment to talk about ice. Now, by now in the media, I'm sure you've seen that ice is raiding many places here in Lewiston, Maine. They are doing a great job, and there have been consequences for the Democrats out of Minneapolis. One of which, we're not seeing that here in Maine. I'm here to tell you that there are no protests going on here outside of Portland. It's expected in Portland, Maine. And even in Portland, Maine, it's not very many. I don't know if anybody's been paid, but I do know that they organize online. They do. They have hotlines. They use an app. And whenever you see ice, you call the app, punch it through the app, or call a hotline to report a tip. I've seen ice here, or Border Patrol, or... Well, the conservatives here have flipped the tables after watching Minneapolis, and are false reporting ice all over the place. So these liberal leftists have been running around like chickens with their heads cut off, and there really hasn't been very much response to begin with. So this has been an epic fail in Maine for leftists. They're not showing up. And I know why. The politicians here have gotten negative feedback for their rhetoric about ice. One Democrat, Jared Golden, sent out an email this week with a letter in it stating that ice needs to be supported as long as they're not doing anything unlawful and they're upholding the law and arresting and detaining people legally. Nobody should have an issue with it. No rhetoric about Gestapo, Nazis. I don't know why people have to show the Democrats this, and why they just intuitively don't understand that they're on the wrong side of it. You would think detaining an illegal alien for raping a child would be something Democrats would want, right? Well, they're finding out 80% of the public wants that. The other 20%, obviously they voted for Kamala Harris and they support everything loony by the Democrats. Because nobody supports that. Nobody's sane. So, I saw photographs today of arrests at Walmart in Waterville. They're hitting stores and places in Brunswick, Portland. There have been several arrests here in Lewiston. And I just want to say, ICE, thank you very much. Department of Homeland Security, thank you very much. You guys have 1,400 targets to pick up here with warrants. You're not getting any resistance, or very little, and only in Portland. You're getting nothing but support. All of the local media that are leftist, CBS, NBC, ABC, their social media is blowing up. The local affiliates here in Maine, their social media is blowing up with 80 to 90% support. The liberals are quiet. So that tells you what you need to know, that we're on the right side of this. The public gets it. I wouldn't worry too much about these fake YouGov polls CNN keeps shoving out there saying that this is unpopular with the public. It's not. It's not, okay? You can research this stuff yourself, okay? It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that the Democrats are on the wrong side of this. A lot of them are toning down their rhetoric. They're getting phone calls from their constituents, probably mostly independents, because they're calling a Democrat, telling them we support what they're doing. They voted for this, remember? That's the crazy part about this with Democrats. President Trump was elected with the popular vote. He got 2 million more votes than Kamala Harris, which still should have been a lot more than that, if I'm honest. Kamala's an idiot, literally. I mean that literally. She's a low IQ person. So, he won all 7 swing states. All 7 swing states where the Republicans ran anti-transgender ideology ads and anti-immigration. And they won all 7 states, okay? So, I don't know why the Democrats didn't get a clue and they think everything's different now somehow. They went on their smear campaigns to demonize ICE and Trump, and it's not working. Trump is more popular now with Republicans, according to the poll I saw, than he was when he was sworn in. So I'm not going to worry about any of this crap. And the good news is, I think for the first couple days, ICE was here in Maine, testing the waters to see if they were going to run into a Minneapolis type thing, and they didn't. So today they have opened up full force everywhere. They are arresting tons of people. You should be very happy. I am. I found out there was someone wanted for murder living in my neighborhood. Just up the street. I didn't know that person was there. So, you know, there's a reason why we voted for Donald Trump, and this is it. So thank you very much, ICE. Thank you very much for Department of Homeland Security, New England, out of Boston. Thank you. I'm going to turn the camera around. So, I walk with you guys today, a very happy American who's getting what I voted for from a duly elected, democratically elected president. And the Democrats are having egg thrown on their faces on this whole entire thing that is going on. So Minneapolis is going to get investigated. Well, they are being investigated for fraud. $19 billion gone, missing. Now we're finding out they've been stealing money. People were ringing alarm bells back when Obama was president. And the difference between Trump 2.0 and 2.1 is Trump was new when he first became president. And he had people on his staff that were, let's say, not the right people. He trusted a lot of the DC Republicans, and now he's not doing that, thankfully. I'll explain why. Former Governor Paul LePage is running in this district we're walking through, District 2 in Maine, 90% Republican district. And we're on the very edge where you get more independents and some Democrats, which we've seen on my walks of this district. We're on the very southern edge of this district. In fact, just 6 or 7 miles, we end up in District 1 from where we're walking, which is heavy leftist Looneyville. So we get a mix here, but most of this district is Republican. Trump got 93% of the primary ballots, and he won the election by 19 points in this district. So rounded off to 20 points, he had a 20-point win over Kamala Harris. And to show you how the rest of the state is, Kamala Harris won the state by 7 points. So that is how tilted District 1 is. A Republican is never going to win District 1 currently. So, therefore, that's why 60% of the population of the state lives in District 1. So theoretically, it is possible for a Republican to win the presidential all electoral college votes, but that has yet to happen since Ronald Reagan, I believe. So we do divide our electoral college votes. So I'm proud and happy to say that I contributed to an electoral college vote for Trump. So my vote means something, because the election can come down to needing one vote, which is why Trump comes here, and he was campaigning. So anyway, bottom line though is Paul LePage with the Trump administration 1.0 was disappointed in the Trump administration because he tried to mention the fraud going on here in Maine as governor. Okay, this is when he was governor of the state of Maine. And Trump did not have the DOJ look into it. Paul LePage has always been miffed by that. So he finds out, I saw him on a podcast with Brian Kilmeade of Fox News yesterday, where Paul LePage was on there talking about that. And he said that people that were working in the Trump administration in Trump's first term, 2016, 2017, didn't even want to hear that. It was one of those things where Trump had just been elected. He was painted as a racist. They were trying to clean up that image. They had a different view of how Trump's presidency was going to be. They wanted him to be a good president. They had good intentions by not investigating the fraud here, because brown-skinned people were doing it. The media at the time had a lot more weight and clout than they do now, which we all admit that. They ended up destroying themselves, really, by rapidly going after Trump on everything. They've ruined their credibility because they got caught lying, making things up, half-truths, out of context, editing videos. You know all that. So, Paul LePage yesterday said that's not the case anymore. Now the Trump administration is going after the fraud here in Maine, he said. In other words, he's saying it's not in the news yet, but it's coming. Because he said as governor, he knew there was fraud going on. And somebody that used to work for Paul LePage here is now on the Trump administration. The guy that used to work here was the guy that was fully aware of Gateway. Okay, remember that organization called Gateway. Gateway is an organization that is quickly becoming the center of a criminal investigation for defrauding tax dollars and sending our money overseas to still yet unknown recipients. Obviously, we know that's not going to be good. We probably, you know, at the end of the day, it's probably going to turn out that our tax dollars have been going to Hezbollah, Hamas, Iran, Somalia, Yemen. We might have been financing the pirating of ships in the Persian Gulf, that we ended up doing cruise missile attacks on those pirates. We may be financing components to put together a nuclear bomb in some part of the world using our tax dollars. We don't know. Some terrorist organization is probably getting funded with that tax money. $19 billion. Elon Omar is worth $32 million in a year. How does that happen? She comes here with nothing, becomes a community organizer for Somalis in Minnesota, Minneapolis, St. Paul. She runs for office and wins. She starts treating Somalia like a respected place that's more important to her than America. Giving speeches, praising Muslim militants. Doesn't take too much to put everything together to figure out that she's corrupt. And she needs to be found guilty. I'm sure an investigation's going on. This is a matter of national security. We have people sitting in Congress, taking stolen tax dollars that may be associated with terrorism in Somalia. Now, that's all alleged, okay? Just my opinion. It's not defamation. I'm not saying that's what she did. I'm saying, boy, sure as hell looks like it, doesn't it? So, we need to get on that. That needs to be investigated immediately. So, I'll turn the camera around. Let me see if we got a rather beautiful day today. Look at that. Look at that, my friends. So today I was watching some of Jack Smith hearing, and I got to tell you, it's even worse than we thought. And this is another hearing today that Democrats are really trying to frame Donald Trump as a criminal. It's not working. And I think it was summed up best by a Republican today, who who just called it right out to Jack Smith's face. That was a partisan witch hunt. They went after Donald Trump. He asked Jack Smith, since you were doing this so-called bipartisan investigation, how many Democrats did you subpoena for testimony? How many Democrat phone records did you subpoena? How many of anything did you subpoena from Democrats? Jack Smith's mouth kind of fell open. And then the Republican goes, it's okay, I'll answer for you. None. Zero. You were specifically going after Donald Trump. Then he says, you claim that this was a conspiracy to overthrow the government. A conspiracy. How many people were charged, he said. Jack Smith goes, just Donald Trump. So you have 6 other conspirators that you claim were conspirators, and you don't prosecute them, you only prosecute Donald Trump. How is that even a conspiracy? Then he goes, your case fell apart and got tossed, and on your way out, when you had been removed from your position, you signed more documentation authorizing things illegally. Okay, he was no longer the special prosecutor, and he signed off on paperwork anyway, which he didn't have the authority to do that. One of which was to release his report just before the election. And the Republicans said, you did that before the election to influence voters. You knew that when you did it, and that's election interference. Didn't say anything. So there you have it in a nutshell. That's exactly what happened. This thing is a whole sham. It was all unveiled today. And, you know, you had your usual people on there, Ted Lieu, Eric Swalwell, Jamie Raskin, spewing their propaganda and bullshit. Same stuff everybody's heard over and over and over and over again. So this same Republican reminded Jack Smith, says to him, last year on election day, 2 million more people voted for Donald Trump than Kamala Harris. Trump won the popular vote. He won all 7 swing states. He goes, I would say in the court of public opinion that the American public did not believe you, and that this was a partisan witch hunt and an abuse of law and lawfare. And the American public rebuked it because the American public is not as dumb as people think, which is true. That is what happened. The court of public opinion said that Jack Smith was crooked, dishonest. Not because Donald Trump said that, but because people could see with their own eyeballs. It was obvious. Beautiful shot right there. So it was blatantly obvious that's what happened, because we saw it. Then I find out today, which I didn't know, Jack Smith spent $23 million that nobody seems to know where it went. So Congressman Jim Jordan asked him how many confidential informants were paid and what were they paid and how many times was each one paid. Jack Smith, no answers. He just mentioned one that they gave money to. He didn't say there were more, he didn't say there were less, he didn't say Jim Jordan was wrong. He didn't know. He didn't know where his office in charge of $23 million went, who was paid for information to be an informant. Absolutely disgraceful hearing today for Democrats. Absolutely shameful or shameless. So it's all coming out now. It's all coming out. Get conspiracy charges. There's no conspiracy. They don't charge everybody they say is a conspirator. If they're conspirators and you charge Trump with that, you should be charging the conspirators too, right? Which would be Giuliani, you know, Trump's circle. And he didn't, because they were just there for Trump. That's it. It was gotta get Trump. That was so obvious today. I'm so glad they had this hearing today. We would not seen a hearing like this if it were Democrats. So, very grateful the Republicans did this today. I mean, this stuff is crazy, right? So, it was established through court proceedings that Jack Smith, one, was illegally appointed to begin with, so anything that he did doesn't matter. It was illegal. Then we find out this other stuff today. It's like, wow, man, wow, right? Crazy. Absolutely bananas. So, we're walking along today. I just wanted to pass that on to you. Maine residents here with ICE, they are being welcomed. And I know there's a couple of film clips online where Dan Bovino, ICE chief, is walking out of a convenience store, and some liberal protester threw some snacks on him or something. That has been probably one of the very only incidents. So that's the stuff that makes its round online. So I'm here to tell you, from somebody that lives here, watching the politicians, watching the social media on Facebook and other places, that Mainers here are not supporting the leftists on this issue. They're supporting ICE. So that's just a fact. In fact, Hannah Pingree, who is the daughter of Chellie Pingree, Congresswoman from District 1, loony District 1 here in Maine. She hates Trump. Her daughter hates Trump. Well, her daughter is running for governor also. And, you know, because nepotism, that the Democrats say they hate Trump for. There you go, right? So, anyway, she had a video calling ICE Gestapo and this and that, and Nazis, and the usual talking points. You should read the comments on that on Facebook. Oh my God. 98% of the comments from people that live in Maine making fun of her, telling her to shut up. They want these illegals gone. They support ICE. This is a major rebuke here by voters of the Democrats. It's a developing story. I'm quite shocked by it, to be honest with you. It is very apparent that the flood of migrants here to Maine has pissed everybody off. Everybody. Now in Lewiston, Maine here, there's a couple of my walks that I went on where I was on Bartlett Street in Lewiston here. Not a safe part of town. And you saw me say that in the video. I said I gotta keep my head on a swivel here. I'm glad I carry, that sort of rhetoric. And there were 3 people on the corner looking at me like I was dinner. And you can tell when people are looking at you like you don't belong here on our turf. That was the look I got. Well, 150 feet from where I was last year alone, there were 3 parking lot shootouts. Several bullets were fired each time. Holes in buildings nearby, holes in cars. Police show up. Didn't see nothing. Don't know who did it. Don't know what happened. Didn't see a thing. So these 40 people that saw everything didn't see anything. Now, there's only 2 reasons why a group of people all at the same time would not see anything. They're either afraid, or that's just their thing. That's all they know. And it's like an insider, their own little community, and they're not assimilating. Okay, they're not assimilating. So in other words, the police are considered outsiders. So they just don't talk to them because they don't respect or like the police. Whatever the case is, there were shootouts. So the media doesn't talk about it because why would they? It makes the Somalis look bad. There are Somali gangs here, more than one. They do breaking and enterings, they break into cars. One of the firearms stolen from a vehicle was used to kill a 17-year-old kid in the street. It's all stuff you don't get in the news. I know this because I live here. There have been many shootings, many acts of violence, and the police on a Friday or Saturday night can be seen on the 3 main drags here that go to housing projects in each one. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 police cars, 2 ambulances, sometimes 3. So it's been a problem. In March of 2024, it was actually probably 2023. March of 2023, 2 cars drove by our place shooting at each other. 2 cars going up side by side, same direction, shooting at each other. And we went outside. We were helping the police department locate shell casings, 9mm. My brother and I found, I don't know, maybe 8 or 9 of them. They found some other ones. They marked them all, took photos. And then they told us probably nothing's going to happen with it. They said we have a prosecutor here who does not prosecute people like they should, unless somebody gets hurt. Then even then, they have a shorter sentence than they should have. And yeah, that's a George Soros funded district attorney. Same position Janet Mills used to hold. The person holding that position now, I'm sure, is going to run for office in Maine when they're done their tenure as district attorney. And we had a former district attorney lose against Susan Collins in the last Susan Collins election. So that's the cycle in these blue states. That's how they do it. Then they gerrymander the districts. I'm waiting for them to try to gerrymander this district, which would be ripe for it. If they add this part that I'm walking in now to District 1, District 2 will never give another electoral college vote to any president ever again. So that's a big deal. I'm actually surprised they haven't tried to do that yet. But again, we're a low population state. We only have 2 districts. They would have to either create a 3rd district, which I don't think they could, or they would have to expand District 1 to take me into District 1 from District 2, which would really piss me off and a lot of other people too, so I don't think it'll happen. But I want to talk about my local mayor for a minute, Mr. Shalene, sorry. Mayor Shalene, or Porky Pig as I affectionately call him, because he's a fat bastard, doesn't do anything but smile for cameras. Turn the camera around here. He has been promoting an ICE hotline on the internet, on Facebook specifically, for people to call and report if they have seen ICE. And like I said, the conservatives here have been giving a whole bunch of false reports on it, overpowering their system, and I think that's leading to a lot of confusion for the left, who were caught off guard to begin with, because while the Bangor Daily News leaked from an anonymous source that ICE was going to be hitting Maine, I talked about it in one of my previous walks before they did come here, that I said nobody really knew when. Could be this week, next month. Well, they showed up in like one day in a blitz, and Democrats were caught off guard. Janet Mills was caught scrambling for a reply for the media. Shenna Bellows came out, and same rhetoric. They are detaining people, and then she falsely claimed that they were also detaining citizens, which is false. There have been no reports of that at all. She just said it though. And she said that they are racial profiling and targeting brown-skinned people. She referenced them as fascist, authoritarians, blah, blah, blah. You know the spiel. So that's what's running for governor. These people are sick. They're socialists, communists. She's a communist. So it was nice that, you know, not too many, but a handful of Democrats who have to win in red districts have said that ICE have a legal authority to do what they're doing. That ICE has legal authority to do what they're doing because they need to get reelected later this year. Susan Collins, who has to play the middle, because like I've explained to you a million times, a hardcore conservative will not win the Senate seat here because they have to stretch into District 1 to get elected. Looneyville. So Susan Collins always manages to peel off enough votes combined with District 2 here, because really, you know, District 2 is 90% Republican, 93% voted for Trump in the primary, and 90% of this district voted for Trump in the main election for president. So this is a Trump district, okay? Very clear. Susan Collins pisses off a lot of voters here. But this is what she does. She actually comes through with funds and projects and jobs. She comes through with the things that she promises she's going to. She just recently brought over $100+ million into Maine that we desperately need. So I know a lot of people online don't want to hear it because they don't like Susan Collins. I don't like Susan Collins. Wish I didn't have to vote for her. But she delivers on what she says she's going to. And she's made it known that she does not agree with Donald Trump on most things. Some things she votes against. Some things she votes for. So her stance on ICE coming here is, I don't understand why they have to use the tactics they're doing. I think it's wrong that they're doing that. They shouldn't be wearing masks, but I support what they're doing here. You see, that's typical Susan Collins. I support that they're here keeping the public safe and arresting child rapists, women rapists, murderers, daddy rapists, dog rapists, whatever. So they're here doing a good job legally with warrants, getting criminals. So she backs it like that, at the same time talking out of her cheek against the Trump administration and the tactics. And I was worried about her re-election, but I'm not worried about it now. Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
And the reason why I'm not worried about it is because Paul LePage yesterday made some good points on the Brian Kilmeade show on the Fox podcasting for Fox News. And he says what I knew already, you know, because Brian Kilmeade was like, well, Jared Golden, 3-time incumbent Democrat congressman in our district as a moderate, dropped out. And Paul LePage said, yeah, he dropped out because he doesn't want to support the fraud that's going on. He has to be a Democrat and denounce it in this district. And he also made the mistake of wanting to see AR-15s banned and assault rifles banned here, requiring citizens to get a tax stamp from the government. First, he said he was going to vote to ban assault rifles. Ban. Like, you can't have them. Then he got a bunch of backlash from voters here in this district, because everybody in this district owns guns. They own AR-15s, and they're like, what? You expect to get reelected after saying that? Well, Jared Golden said that, after he accepted money from 2 relatives of George Soros and his son Alex Soros, who, by the way, married Huma Abedin, Hillary Clinton's old assistant that got fired because of Anthony Weiner and the Weiner laptop. So anyway, they're all incestuous, if you want to call it that. So anyway, Jared Golden changed his mind and said, well, people should have their AR-15s, but now they need to register them with the government, which means paying for a tax stamp. Wrong answer. His numbers went in the toilet after that. So, too late. Paul LePage saw an opportunity, threw his hat in the ring. There's going to be a primary. I really don't expect Paul LePage to lose a primary. In fact, I think everybody knows they're voting for him already. I am. 2-time governor here, made national news, was being like Trump before Trump got elected, before Trump even came down the escalator. This governor, Paul LePage, was making national news as a Republican racist and this and that and misogynist. And so I remember a conversation that he had with President Trump when President Trump came here to Cumberland Civic Center in Portland. Paul LePage told him, he said, look, they are going to go after you. And he said, you're not even going to, you won't even, what I have to tell you they're going to do will be even worse than what I'm telling you. They're going to go after you, your family. They're going to go after everything you've ever done. They are going to have people come out of the woodwork accusing you of crimes of different kinds. He said they did that with me, tried to impeach him twice, Paul LePage, and they failed. And after they tried to impeach Paul LePage, he won re-election. So that blew up in the Democrats' face because the public doesn't like that stuff. The Democrats didn't learn anything. They did the same exact thing to Donald Trump. In fact, I would even say, while Trump was out of office, his popularity dropped. It was going down. Ron DeSantis was up at 20-something%. And then they raided Mar-a-Lago. After they raided Mar-a-Lago, Trump shot up in the polls, DeSantis hit rock bottom, and everything changed. So if they had not gone after Donald Trump, it makes you wonder if DeSantis might have gotten the nomination. Maybe Donald Trump wouldn't have run. Maybe he would have. Probably would have won the primary. I'm just saying it would have been different. So that's what they ended up doing. And so when the Democrats do all this lawfare stuff, they actually help the Republicans because it pisses everybody off. They need to stop doing that. So anyway, I am at the outhouse. All right. Use the public outhouse. So yes, what I was saying is every time the Democrats pull those shenanigans, they end up boosting Republicans because the public knows it's wrong. They just know it's wrong. Unless you have legitimate cause. You can't just make stuff up. Insurrection, and they honestly felt if they just repeated it enough times, people would just, that's what it would be. Because that's what they used to do in the past. With everything. So, Very strange behavior, but that's what they do. I mean, I don't get it. Doesn't make much sense to me. So we're seeing a little bit of comeuppance right now. Democrats did not expect Trump to win. They thought he'd be locked up for life. They tried their best. Trump's president again. And now he's got the full force of everything coming down on the people that wronged him. And I don't blame him at all, because they are guilty of something. There's also going to be charges in the election fraud, which is another thing that was mentioned today. The stolen election in 2020, various states, whether they conspired together or not, they conspired within those states themselves and interfered in an election. It turns out 305,000 votes in Georgia were found to be ineligible. They should not have been allowed. President Trump lost Georgia by 11,000 plus votes, which means he won Georgia. Trump knew he won Georgia. That's why this has been eating at him. And now we know that he won Georgia. Media is not talking about it, because why would they? But that's the information that has come out recently. They did an internal investigation in Georgia, and that's what came out. 305,000 votes. Trump won Georgia by a lot. I'd be willing to bet he won Wisconsin and Michigan as well. Probably Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania, if you remember, they used the emergency voting because of COVID, where they sent ballots out to everybody. Secretary of State made that decision. One of the most powerful people in the state, besides the governor, is the Secretary of State. They decide how everything gets worded on ballots. They decide who can get licenses and who doesn't. They decide on a lot of things. Secretary of State is appointed by the governor, not elected. So, very interesting when you think about it. All of these states have everything in common. They have a Secretary of State that is crooked, partisan, dishonest. A perfect example of that is Shenna Bellows suing to have RFK Jr. taken off the presidential ballot, and failed. RFK Jr. ended up removing himself off the ballot, but he was still on the ballot when I voted, because they printed them up ahead of time. President Trump was on the presidential ballot, and he was on my primary ballot. Now, speaking of elections, they just had this Somali who refused to resign. He got sworn in and started to become a city councilman. This is the same one that reported a false address, possibly involved in fraud. And the mayor of the city here, Shalene, asked him to step down and not accept the position. Of course, Osman did not. I think his name was Oman Osman or something, whatever, doesn't matter. Anyway, he also had an illegal gun charge, illegal possession of a firearm by somebody previously You know, you can't have a firearm if you're a felon or if you're not a citizen. You know, it's like, why was this guy allowed to run in the first place? Nobody bothered to check on him. Oh, he's Somali. You don't want to look like you're racist. You don't want to be a racist. Racist. You got to roll the R's. Racist. So anyway, I'm glad those days are gone by. We can call a spade once again. No racial context to that, by the way, because I'm not a racist. So I learned how to roll R's. Hey, look at this. This is new. See right here? Get this part of the road here dips down about 2 inches all the way around. See that? Up until that sewer grate. So this whole part right here is sunk in the ground. I'm wondering if that sewer pipe is malfunctioning and we're getting erosion under here, because that's a pretty big frost heave, which could be the case. That's the kind of thing you see here with frost heaves. That's why when you look, when I walk, all the roads are cracked, even ones that they just paved 2 years ago. It's all cracked. So that's what happens right here. That's a big dip. So anyway, Osman was sworn in, and then city council told him that you're going to be removed. We have the votes. We'll just vote and remove you. You have the option of being removed or resigning. So they extended the courtesy of him resigning, and he took it, and he did. So now they have that spot open. I went to the state of Maine website and requested a ballot. So I'll let you guys know when that comes, and I have until, I think, a couple weeks into February to vote. After I get it, I will fill it out and we'll go drop it off at the city clerk. And a lot of people say, well, if you're just going to go drop it off, why don't you just vote in person? Well, I can vote at my leisure, and a lot of times for local elections, they have things on the ballot that you don't know is on it until you're there voting. Then you don't know who the hell you're voting for or what it's about. I like to have time to research it, look it up, read about it. So that's why I do that. Especially when you have a Secretary of State in Maine who likes to play legal mumbo jumbo in the description of the laws to try to confuse people legally. So anyway, it's all dishonest, it's all crooked. So this is just for a local special election, which means I'm going to have to follow up on that, because I don't know why I was allowed to order a ballot from the Secretary of State when it's a local election for City Council. So what I'm assuming is, like with all previous, you notify the Secretary, and I followed the link they provided me, so that's the thing. You know, but somebody working for the city may be an idiot, put the wrong link, you know what I mean? So we're going to have, I think they'll just do like they did in past ones I requested, where it gets verified by the city clerk anyway. So it's like through that chain. So my request to the state will be transferred to the city clerk. And then they're going to look up if this Osman affects my district at all, because he does affect part of District 4. I'm in District 4, but we have another city councilman that represents probably the neighborhood I'm in, because the neighborhood he's from is kind of a crap neighborhood. We don't live there, so I may not even get a ballot to vote for that. But I requested one anyway. Okay, that's, you know, that's the way you got to do it. You got to participate in elections. I'm probably going to get a letter in the mail saying that I wasn't entitled to have a ballot for that because it's outside my address. Whatever, you know. We'll see what happens. So now from walking, I got my blood pumping, I'm sweating. My hands are warm. I took my gloves off because I was sweating in my gloves. I don't want my gloves to smell like an old goat. Hope you're enjoying your day today. Governor Janet Mills here is facing ridicule. I don't think she's really going to face much for an investigation. But I think she is involved in fraud with the Somali money, and I think it's going to come out eventually. And it may interfere with her election with Susan Collins. If she's a nominee. Because I'm sure the Susan Collins campaign is going to pounce right on that like pigeons on popcorn. And the other thing is Susan Collins is very established here. Everybody knows her. And like Paul LePage said on that Brian Kilmeade podcast, he goes, oh, Susan Collins is going to win. She's going to win. And he said that's just based on the district. Most of her votes are going to come from District 2. And basically she's come through with the money. She's also on the Ways and Means Committee. A very big, important position in Washington, D.C. that has taken care of Maine. So, now, the last time Susan Collins ran, Democrats were trying to pinch off Lindsey Graham's seat in South Carolina, and they were trying to pinch off Susan Collins' seat here in Maine, 2020, and they didn't come close in either one. Polling all said it was close. This may be the election. Record money got pumped in. They raised record money. And that is something that the Democratic Party has done for a long time. They'll use fake polling to generate enthusiasm and money. Oh, it's neck and neck. It's neck and neck. Donate $5. Donate $10. Get your candidate over the hump. Defeat the Republican. And it turns out after the election, it wasn't even close. So that happened in Lindsey Graham's election, which, by the way, Lindsey Graham has blown the doors off anybody that wants to run against him And he's got like a big 18-point lead because he's stuck by Donald Trump. So that tells you what's going on. Now, Susan Collins has been sticking by Trump enough to get my vote, and it's just because she has actually done something for the state here. She helped get a big giant military contract for Bath Iron Works, which is a big deal here, okay? We only have 1.4 million people. Our GDP is pretty low. We're called vacation land. We live or die by vacation. People vacationing here, okay? Tourist state. Beautiful to look at. But in the top 5 cost of living. So when I tell you guys that prices are going down here, they're going down. And they are. I just did groceries yesterday, actually. I bought a couple pounds of grapes. I got some apples, a couple bags of potatoes, onions. I got some tomatoes. I got all kinds of stuff. And I paid less than what I paid for it in the past. And I was happy about it. So prices are going down. Stock market's gone up. It dipped a little bit recently, but stock market's predicted to really increase this year as well. Everybody worries about a bubble. That wouldn't be good if the stock market fell apart because the bubble burst. But so far, so good. And the economy is really going to start hitting on all cylinders this year. Ford factory just announced a 3rd shift. Ford factory that makes F-150s is now going to be running 24/7 for the first time in many, many, many years. So things are happening. This is what we voted for. Also, I want to report that it looks like they're getting close to a Greenland deal. And Trump had a talk with these world leaders at Davos. And I think he discussed a lot of stuff that people don't know about. Mainly top secret classified stuff. Because after they talked with Trump, a lot of them seem to be on board, understanding that, you know, this wasn't what the media was saying. This is an actual, has to do with the military defenses of Europe and the United States. So we have new weapons now. Things have changed. We don't look at defense the same way we used to. China and Russia absolutely can never get a foothold in Greenland. And, you know, the Denmark argument of, well, if the Russians and Chinese did come on Greenland, you know, they wouldn't be there long and they would be dealt with by the United States. Well, that's not good enough. If something belongs to the United States, they're not going to be there to begin with. They just won't. And I think he's getting that point across. The people in Greenland, they were talking about, probably going to be compensated. There's about 56,000 people in Greenland. And as part of the purchase of Greenland, which the United States is going to do, by the way, hasn't officially been announced, but I'm telling you that is going to happen. We've done it in the past. We've purchased Alaska from Russia. We have purchased the U.S. Virgin Islands, etc., so on and so forth. U.S. Virgin Islands we purchased from Denmark. Why did we purchase the U.S. Virgin Islands from Denmark? Because World War I. Germans had U-boats, submarines. They were destroying transatlantic shipping from the United States to Europe. International people headed to France from New York, okay? Those ships, as they got close to England or Europe, were getting sunk. Germany, you can read about it, they were sinking everything. They even started sinking American ships. So, we did not want a Nazi submarine base on the U.S. Virgin Islands where they could refuel, stock up, because you have to remember at the time the submarines were diesel. They needed fuel. They needed the surface to charge their batteries. And so whenever they would surface to charge their batteries, they were exposed to attack. So what they would do is they would find places like the Virgin Islands and have a Nazi submarine docking base there. Several examples of that. You can read about it. They did the same thing in World War II. So we purchased the U.S. Virgin Islands for an insane amount of money. Way more than what it was worth. But security of the United States is worth the money. And we're going to pay a lot for Greenland. All right? Billions of dollars. And we're going to compensate the 56,000 people that live there, probably give them 100,000, 150 a resident, 150,000. Almost all of the people on Greenland earn about $10,000 a year. Not very much. So you offer them $100,000. Geez, I'm 10 years worth of salary. Who's not going to take that? To be able to live in the same place and actually have more freedom than you had before. And options for health insurance and all this other stuff. So they keep talking about how Denmark pays for their health insurance. Well, it's 56,000 people, you know, big whoop-de-doo, right? Denmark's not giving them a check of $100,000 each, are they? So we're going to have Greenland. Fully confident of that. And Trump went to Davos. He's there now. Stated we're not going to use the military. He goes, you know, that's just the media being hyperbolic because it's Trump. He told them, you know, which is true. So I did see a funny Babylon Bee article, parody. Babylon Bee is a comedy parody whose slogan is "Fake news you can trust," because their fake news is often believable. They said that President Trump is going to invade Greenland by disguising himself as a migrant because Europe let the migrants invade Europe. I thought that was hilarious. So, boy, what a time to be alive. This president is, I can't wrap my head around it. The best president in my lifetime. Absolutely amazing. So, isn't that incredible? Anyway, let me turn the camera around. Turn it around for probably most of the rest of this until it's almost done. I'm gonna put my gloves back on. Sun is starting to go down. We had an inch of snow last night. Looks like somebody replaced their bathroom fixture. The sink. So anyway, really, what a damn time to be alive, huh? Wow. I never thought I would see a president like this in my lifetime. You always hear about, you know, Roosevelt, and you hear about Truman, Abraham Lincoln, George Washington, and, you know, a lot of these presidents in between really never came up to that muster. That includes Obama. Obama had 2 terms, but, you know, what did he do, really? He screwed up our healthcare system. You know, he bombed and blew up more brown-skinned people than Republicans have with drone strikes. Crazy amount. George Bush blew up quite a few as well. George Bush had a regrettable war in Iraq. So, President Trump's the real deal. Something I want you guys to check out, because you have to. I fell asleep with the TV on, and I happened to wake up in the middle of the night, and President Trump was live streaming on the White House feed. I had fallen asleep with that on. And they were streaming the Board of Peace. The Board of Peace that Trump created with Witkoff and son-in-law Jared Kushner. And the main goal of this Board of Peace is to solve any global conflicts that arise peacefully, which involves economics, using economics to help end world conflicts. In other words, if you guys stop fighting, you can make money. If you don't, then we're not going to trade with you guys. You're going to lose a lot of money. That's usually enough to curtail war. So, perfect example is Russia has paid dearly for invaded Ukraine, and now they don't want to save face. Well, they have to save face, or else they won't quit. They think they can just hold on, and, you know, as far as we're concerned, NATO is buying the weaponry from us, so we're not depleting our military, and we're not depleting our tax dollars to fund it. We're righteously being paid for it because President Trump increased 5% GDP for all the countries in NATO, who everybody has agreed to except for Spain. So, needless to say, you're not going to find very many cheap Spanish olives in Maine or the United States that come from Spain. Basically what that amounts to. So anyway, things are going very well. But I want you guys to watch the Board of Peace meeting that they had at Davos, and watch how all these world leaders respect Donald Trump. Then I want you to watch that sniveling little shit, Gavin Newsom, spew his bullshit at Davos about how these world leaders need knee pads because they had been servicing Donald Trump's groin. That's what he said. Not word for word verbatim, but he did say knee pads, saying they've been catering to Donald Trump without a spine, and he said it makes me sick. Well, after his comments, he was kicked out of the U.S. House that they have there for U.S. delegates. So he had to go find his own lodging. These people don't get it. They're in the minority. The American public supports what's happening. I mean, this is crazy. Gavin Newsom is so tone deaf. He wants to be in the White House so badly. He thinks going against every damn thing Trump does is going to get him there. He's completely ignoring what just happened to Kamala. But he feels, probably like everybody else, he won't say it publicly, but Kamala's a moron. And Gavin Newsom is not a moron, but he's also tone deaf and he's arrogant. He's had a very privileged life, and I just think he's out of touch. His rhetoric is ridiculous. It's dangerous. Saying that this is civil war. He actually said that. That's a quote. He said, "We are in a civil war," he said. "We will not cooperate with the federal government." Oh, really? You know what happens when government can't perform their duties? The Insurrection Act. Gavin Newsom has an $18 billion budget deficit that he has to come up with the money for in a state that already has high taxes on everything. He's going to have to raise taxes even more. Eventually, California voters are going to get sick of that. And they're probably going to vote for a moderate Democrat. And I think a moderate Democrat is going to be the way they're going to go. And I think they're going to be fake moderates. They're going to say what they need to get elected. That's what Joe Biden did. Joe Biden ran as a moderate. Looking back at it, he didn't sound very moderate to me when he was campaigning. Anybody that wants to come here should be able to come here. No questions asked. Well, that's what he did, isn't it? So anyway, my friends, that's where we're at right now. Gavin Newsom is a son of a bitch. The scooter guys beeping their horns while they're driving off because they were on camera. I think I'm live streaming. Amazing how many see the camera and they think I'm live streaming. I think I can live stream through this, but I'd have to pay for an extra service, and it's not cheap. It's like $70 a month, which is more than what I'm paying. Well, it's about what I'm paying for car insurance. So anyway, Gavin Newsom is Gavin Newsom is such a sniveling little crap. I really don't like that guy because he's fake. He's a fraud. Right? He's a fraudster. They're going to be looking into California for fraud, and he's like, well, go ahead, I welcome it. I'm against fraud too. If you find any, let me know. He's already trying to play cutesy, you know. California leads the world in mass shootings. You can check that out. One of the strictest gun control states, and they have the most mass shootings. And their comeback to that, Gavin Newsom, and this is how much of a snake he is, will say, well, Republicans, cities have the most violent crime. Republican states, he says. Where in reality, it is heavily Democrat-run cities. Houston, Dallas, all right? They've been run by Democrats, progressives. The state government has no control other than the state constitution and things like that. Everything else is run by Democrats, and Democrats run cities. And they try to say that, well, it's a red state. Well, it's a red state with blue cities. You know, all of the red states. Missouri, most Republican state there is, okay? They got Kansas City and St. Louis. Both of those are riddled with gangs, crime, drugs, death. Can't say it's because of Republicans. Republicans don't run those. So these are the word games they like to play. And it's bullshit, you know that. So people are catching on to it. Gavin Newsom sounds foolish. Gavin Newsom's internet gurus came up with an overweight J.D. Vance with a beard and frizzy perm haircut. And it's become so popular with conservatives that conservatives are using that for everything. So that's another example of trying to make fun of their opponent's appearance, and you end up making them look good. Because I've said this a million times, Democrats can't meme. They just don't get it. They don't understand humor. The humor that they use often is not funny. If you want to find that out, go read The Onion nowadays. Remember The Onion? They used to be clever. They used to be clever like the Babylon Bee is now. And then The Onion went woke. And they haven't recovered. They're just not funny. They're afraid to offend everybody. It's the funniest thing. So we're going to finish up the last stretch of this walk. And this has been a nice walk. Almost 40 degrees today. We're going to get an Arctic blast overnight. Tomorrow the high is going to be 25. And then it's really going to get cold. And the high temperature Saturday is going to be 5. 5 degrees for high temperature. It's going to be minus 12 to minus 15 overnight for a couple nights. That's always tough. And but you know, I was looking at the calendar from last year and temperatures, and you know, this time of year, towards the end of January, it was about the same last year. So, in fact, last year on this date, I think it was minus 14. If you remember, President Trump was being sworn in on the 20th, and they actually canceled it from an outdoor event to an indoor one because of the extreme cold, remember? So we got very cold here. It's going to be cold like that again this weekend. Now, you're not going to see very much for protesting in Minneapolis this weekend, I can tell you that much. And if you do, if you see people protesting in Minneapolis this weekend because they were paid, how do I know this? Minneapolis, St. Paul, Minnesota is going to have a high temperature, okay, the high temperature is going to be minus 12. That's the high. Wind chill is going to be minus 30. That is frostbite almost instantly on your skin. The temperature overnight probably is going to be minus 20, minus 30. So I don't anticipate very much rioting in Minneapolis this weekend. If they do, they're going to have to do it from their cars with it running through a bullhorn. So we're really going to see who's paid and not paid this weekend. You see where I'm going with that? So that should be interesting to watch. I'm also very happy that we didn't have protesters show up here in Lewiston. It's been quiet. ICE has been rounding people up. And it's been going smoothly. In fact, they've upticked operations today because things are going so well. Awesome. So anyways, my friends, I'm going to end the walk now because I still have a ways to go. So when you watch the video, it's going to say 6 miles, but I'm ending it at over 5 because I figure this is long enough for an upload. I think you would agree. But I want to thank you for walking with me today. I want to thank you for liking my channel and subscribing, liking my videos, sharing whatever content you want to share, gun content or otherwise. Feel free to do so. And I just really appreciate you being here. And until the next walk, I'll sign off with you. God bless you and your family. God bless Donald Trump, and God bless the United States of America. And things are looking really good, guys. See you on the next walk. Oh, one more thing. It'll be like Columbo. I noticed on the generic ballot, Democrats have gained some points. They now have a 9-point advantage. And it's said that when Democrats have a 7-point or better advantage on the generic ballot, that they're going to win midterms. Why is this happening? Democrats are in the toilet with voters. And what's doing this for them is disunity, infighting among Republicans. And it needs to effing stop. And it needs to effing stop now. Because the damage that you're doing, blackpilling everything Donald Trump does, is starting to show up in the polling with independents. We lose the independents, we lose midterms. Trump's going to have 90+% of the Republicans voting for him. You need independents or you won't win. So that has to change. So I'm begging you, pleading with you, stop fighting with one each other online. Okay, just stop. We need unity. I suspect that'll come as the economy improves and Donald Trump's presidency keeps getting better and better, which it is. So this may be a moot point by the time midterms come out. But as it is right now, we need to stop this, stop the infighting. It's causing damage, just like I told you it would. So, anyways, see you guys on the next walk. God bless all of you. Bye-bye.